The Water-type starter has always been the most consistent choice in essentially every region. I mean, all of these mons rock, and will always be a very good option for a traditional playthrough. But some water starters are definitely better than others. And so today, I'm gonna be ranking every single water-type starter from worst to best. Now for these rankings, I'll be taking all of the following into consideration: the designs, the strength of each starter both in-game and competitively, as well as the overall importance and influence that these starters have played to the franchise. And finally, before we begin, I would love it if you could hit that like button, as it does help me out a ton. Alright then, with all of that out of the way, let's get started. The worst water starter is definitely Inteleon. Inteleon is a prime example of just dropping the ball, at least from a design standpoint. I remember back during the Sword and Shield hype era when the starters first got revealed, and I quickly found myself becoming a member of the Sobble Squad. I just found its cute design and shy personality to be great, and it was certainly a stark contrast to the other two Galarian starters. Similarly, once Drizzile got revealed, I found myself really liking the middle stager too. But then, once I laid my eyes on Inteleon, I just hated it. It has this awkwardly slim build and this toothpick-like frame. I just didn't like it at all. And as I'm sure you all know, the Galarian starters are super gimmicky, but I really think it's at its worst here with Inteleon, as it is based on James Bond of all things. And unlike the other two starters, this gimmick totally comes out of nowhere. But while its design might be gross, Inteleon is pretty solid when it comes to battling. I mean, it's definitely not that great, both in-game or in competitive, but it can still be a pretty solid team member all the same. Its stats are pretty nicely distributed, allowing it to work quite well as a speedy special attacker. It also boasts some solid versatility with its move pool, with access to moves like Snipe Shot, Dark Pulse, Hydro Pump, Shadow Ball, Ice Beam, and Air Slash, among many others. Unfortunately though, Inteleon doesn't get access to any reliable setup moves to further solidify itself as a prominent sweeper. Additionally, Inteleon did kind of get some time to shine in the Pokemon Journeys anime, as one worked as Go's secondary ace, but it just never really got that many great moments, and was more or less just used to help him capture Pokemon. In closing, the Sobble line is just a big disappointment. It had decent potential, but with Inteleon, it just totally flopped. Next up, we have Samurott. Oddly enough here with Samurott, I feel the exact opposite way that I feel about Inteleon. I like Samurott's design and its inspiration. It's based on a samurai, and it is a pretty natural progression from both Oshawott and Dewott. And speaking of, this entire line's design is actually really great. While Oshawott is kind of a Piplup knockoff, Dewott just looks so clean. And it is definitely one of the best middle stage starters in the entire series. But that's kind of where the good ends for the Samurott line, because when it comes to battling, it's just not good. In-game, Oshawott is probably the worst Unova starter for a playthrough. In both the originals and sequel games, the only big battle where the Oshawott line will have an advantage is against Clay. Meanwhile, when it comes to competitive battling, Samurott just hasn't done a very good job of keeping up with power creep over the years. I mean, it was never that great to begin with, but in recent generations, it has gotten worse and worse. In all honesty, Samurott is probably the worst water starter ever when it solely comes to battling. Every other water-type starter significantly outclasses it, including its own regional variant. But at least Oshawott, Dewott, and Samurott all boast some pretty interesting designs. In 8th place, we have Quaquaval. Now, Quaquaval is certainly one controversial Pokemon, and it's mostly all due to that final design. You see, Quaxly quickly gained a lot of followers when it was first revealed to us a few years back. It had this cute little swagger about it that drew the attention of a ton of fans. Many, including myself, had very high expectations for it. But once we saw what Quaxwell evolved into, it quickly became the most hated starter of the bunch. Like Inteleon before it, the Quaquaval final design just totally drops the ball. Plus, it is really annoying and distracting when you're using one in battle. And actually, Quaxly is indeed the worst starter to use for a playthrough of Scarlet and Violet. It'll only ever have the typing advantage against Larry, Grusha, Rika, and Poppy. Meanwhile, it matches up poorly with Brassius, Iona, Kofu, Rhyme, Tulip, Larry, and Professor Turo. But, well, yes, it is ugly. And, well, yes, it's not great for a playthrough. Quaquaval is at least pretty good on competitive teams. Stats-wise, Quaquaval is built to be a physical sweeper, and thanks to its signature attack Aqua Step and its hidden ability Moxie, it's quickly able to snowball through teams. As such, it does see some decent usage in the competitive scene as a late game sweeper, but it's just a bit too frail to actually be a top tier mon. Next up, we have Feraligatr. I know it seems like Feraligatr is coming in a bit low on this list, but don't get it twisted. I like Feraligatr a lot, but I simply won't let nostalgia for one of the oldest starters cloud my judgment. This is because Feraligatr is good, just good. It's certainly not amazing by any means, but just about everything with the Totodile line is above average. Totodile alone is one great and adorable first stager. I also really appreciated Ash's in the anime. Sure, it wasn't actually that good in battle, but it definitely had a ton of personality. Then there's Croconaw, which is one of my all-time favorite middle stage starters. It randomly gets this caveman toga for no reason at all, and I love it. Then there's Feraligatr itself, with a menacing and overall great design. I definitely believe that it is the best looking of the Johto starters. And for any Johto game, the Totodile line is a solid option. I personally believe it to be the most optimal for a playthrough, thanks to its strong physical attack as well as its deep move pull. Then, from a metagame perspective, Feraligatr is pretty one-dimensional. But that one dimension is totally fine, because it consists of setting up with Dragon Dance, and then just plowing through everything in your way with some hard-hitting physical moves. All in all, Feraligatr is just solid. It has kind of become a bit forgotten about over the years, but I have a strong feeling that the Totodile line will once again gain some popularity, along with a much-needed new Mega form once Legend Z to A releases this fall. Taking 6th place is Empoleon. I honestly view the entire Empoleon line to be super underrated. Piplup is an adorable first stager that also got a ton of time to shine in the anime with Dawn. And then yeah, Piplup is pretty ugly, but the line certainly sticks the landing with its final form in Empoleon. From a design standpoint alone, I find Empoleon to be both bold and elegant. And honestly, it might be one of the cleanest designs in all of Pokemon. It obviously draws inspiration from Napoleon Bonaparte, but then there's that trident headpiece, and it's just so mwah, chef's kiss. But even with this 10 out of 10 design, I fear that Empoleon kind of gets overlooked for a couple of reasons. First, comparatively speaking, Empoleon just doesn't get as much attention as the other Sinnohan starters, especially with Infernape. Everyone loves that fire ape. And it did receive the leading role in the Diamond and Pearl anime, which really propped Infernape up while leaving Empoleon way behind. And also, in Sinnoh, there are a decent amount of water types that you can use in lieu of choosing Piplup as your starter. But still, whether you're playing Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, or the remakes, Empoleon is definitely the best water type to use in those games. The water and steel typing is ridiculously strong, especially defensively. Meanwhile, Empoleon's stats are kind of good. Its special stats are really solid, but for most of its competitive career, it's been used more as a support Pokemon, with moves like Defog, Scald, Stealth Rocks, Knockoff, or even Toxic. It's mostly just there to stall you to death, and thanks to its great typing and solid defensive stats, it is able to do that pretty well. Overall, Empoleon is one very good water starter Pokemon. It boasts arguably the best final design of the entire archetype, And it honestly deserves a whole lot more attention and respect. Taking 5th is Hisuian Samurott. This selection might be the most surprising in the entire video, but it's totally valid as Hisuian Samurott is actually quite amazing. If we were to compare base Samurott to its Hisuian form, the Hisuian version of it outclasses the base in nearly every way. On one hand, it's not the most uniquely designed regional variant, but when it comes to battling, it's just on a whole different level. First, it does have a much better typing, as the Hisuian form gains the dark typing upon do-out evolving. The Hisuian form's stats are also much better distributed than its Unovan form, as it will hit a bit harder on the physical side of things, while also being significantly faster too. Finally, the best thing about Hisuian Samurott is certainly its move pool. Specifically, its signature move Ceaseless Edge is incredible, as it will do massive stab damage while also setting up a layer of spikes. So essentially, you're able to cripple your opponent's entire team with just one single move. Then, in Legends Arceus, Hisuian Samurott is certainly the best starter to pick for a playthrough. Its typing and move pool will give you a big advantage in 3 of the 5 battles with noble Pokemon, and it'll definitely perform the best in the climactic battle with Volo, as it'll have a typing advantage over a good chunk of his team, as well as both forms of Giratina. All of the tools in its kit, especially its amazing move pool, make Hisuian Samurott one of the most underrated starters ever, and easily the best choice of the bunch while in Hisui. In 4th place, we have Primarina. Primarina certainly isn't the most popular starter ever, but it is ridiculously OP. I know earlier I said Empoleon's typing was great, but honestly, Primarina's is significantly better. The water and fairy type is a sick combination, with a ton of resistances and very few hard counters. It also has some really well distributed stats too. Both of its special stats are extraordinary, and pair very well with its diverse move pool. Thanks to this versatile kit, Primarina can be run in a multitude of different ways. It's most commonly run as a defensive wall, but it can also find great success as a support Pokemon. Or even with access to Calm Mind, it can turn into a bulky and slow sweeper. And that's not to mention how incredible the Popplio line performs in the main story of the Sun and Moon games. In both sets of games, Primarina is easily the most OP starter to use, as it will pretty much have the typing advantage in every single big battle in the entire main story. It honestly might be the best starter to use in its native region in the entirety of the series. The only thing that's unfortunate about Primarina is that it is definitely the least popular of the Alolan starters. I mean, we all know how popular Incineroar has gotten thanks to the anime, VGC, and even its inclusion in Smash Bros. And similarly, just about everyone loves Rowlet. But that then kind of leaves the Popplio line left in the shadows of the other 2 starters. I think a big reason as to why Primarina is so unpopular with fans is due to its more feminine design. Obviously, this isn't an outright bad thing, but let's face facts. More boys play Pokemon than girls, and they're gonna want to go with the Wrestling Kitty or Archer Owl when it comes to choosing a starter. But regardless of popularity, you simply can't dispute how great of a starter Primarina is in battle. Taking 3rd is the original water starter, Blastoise. To put it bluntly, Squirtle, Wartortle, and Blastoise are all gaming icons. And seriously, I don't think it's that far of a stretch to dub the Squirtle line as the 2nd most iconic starter Pokemon of all time. The entire line is just so simplistically beautiful. Game Freak really didn't overthink it or get too gimmicky here at all. They just gave a blue turtle massive cannons. And like that, we got one of the most well-known and most beloved Pokemon of all time. As far as using Squirtle itself in a Kanto game, it'll always perform very well. Thanks to its move pool and natural bulk, by the time it's a full-on Blastoise, it'll definitely be the anchor of your team. Really, the only stretch that the Squirtle line will kind of struggle in is during the early to mid-game, when you have to battle the likes of Lieutenant Surge, then Erica in back-to-back gym battles. Other than that, it'll excel against Brock, Blaine, Giovanni, and even Lance if you give Blastoise Ice Beam. Meanwhile, competitively, Blastoise has done a very, very good job of standing the test of time and weathering any threat of power creep. Whether it be its underratedly powerful Mega form, its beautifully designed G-Max form, or even just now that it's finally able to use the move Shell Smash, Blastoise has been able to add a lot to its kit over the years to keep it both relevant and powerful. Finally, I have to reiterate how important the Squirtle line has been to the entire Pokemon franchise. Oftentimes, Blastoise is depicted to be the signature Pokemon of Blue, and the same can be said about Blue's anime counterpart in Gary Oak. Meanwhile, Ash Ketchum also had his own Squirtle, who's not just one of his most iconic mons ever, but arguably his coolest too. Big Man Blastoise will forever be one of the all-time fan favorites, and it forever set the curve as to what makes for a great water-type starter Pokemon. Taking second place is Swampert. Well, if the Squirtle line set the standard for what makes for a great water starter, then the Mudkip line definitely perfected it. Personally, I adore every single design of each stage of the Mudkip line. As for Mudkip, obviously it's an adorable internet-breaking meme. And I actually find Marshtomp to be kind of charming too. It has this confidently goofy design, which I can't help but respect. Then, finally is Swampert, who is just absolutely sick. And it even boasts a very solid orange and blue color combination. If you can't tell by now, I much rather prefer when the final stage of these starters are epic and powerful looking beasts, rather than looking something like Inteleon or Quaquaval. But fitting of its design, Swampert is a real monster in battle. It is pretty well known by now that Swampert is one of the most overpowered starters of all time. Should you choose Mudkip, Well, and Hoenn, that pretty much makes the entirety of those games a complete breeze. From a typing perspective alone, the Mudkip line will have the advantage in over half of the gym leaders, the entirety of Team Magma, and the champion, unless you're playing Emerald. Then on top of that, Swampert does have the highest base stat total of any starter Pokemon ever. Besides kind of lacking in speed, it is very well rounded with a great attack stat. So that means nothing is gonna enjoy getting hit with a stab Earthquake. Then competitively, Swampert has always been a solid option over the years. It definitely hit its prime though with the introduction of its Mega form back in Oras. While Mega Swampert might have been somewhat goofy looking, it was ridiculously busted, especially when its Swift Swim ability got activated while on rain teams. Honestly, I only really wish that Swampert got a bit more love from the Pokemon Company. While it is certainly awesome and a real beast in battle, it's also just the least popular starter from Hoenn. But other than that, the Mudkip line is easily among the best of the best when it comes to any starter ever. But the best water starter is definitely Greninja. I mean, it just had to be Greninja. Never has a Pokemon risen to the top quite as fast as Greninja did. Right when Greninja was revealed, essentially everyone decided to go with Froakie as their starter in X and Y. And almost instantly, the Froakie line separated itself from the other two Colossian starters. And on top of that, it is certainly the most OP starter to use in those Kalos games. On its own, it can essentially solo the entire region, with really the only hard counter coming in the 4th gym with Ramos. Also during Generation 6, Greninja was easily one of the best mons in the entire competitive meta. Thanks to its signature Protean ability, on top of its great stats, Greninja was one of the few starter Pokemon ever to be banished into the Uber tier for singles. However, what really gave Greninja its iconic status was its leading role it played in the XYZ anime. Ash's Greninja brought insane levels of hype and popularity back into the anime. It constantly had internet-breaking fights, for better or for worse, and it would ultimately go on to become one of Ash's top 3 Pokemon ever. The Ash-Greninja Battle Bond form became so widely popular that it did get brought into the main series games in Sun and Moon. The Battle Bond form made Greninja even more powerful, and the form essentially acted as a free Mega Evolution without actually having to use your one Mega. Greninja was able to further solidify its title as a gaming icon, as it was chosen to be a playable character in not just one, but 2 different Smash Bros. Games. But what's kind of unfortunate about Greninja is that it seems like Game Freak and the Pokemon Company have tried to retcon and even cripple Greninja over the recent years. It was totally unobtainable in Sword and Shield, and then its signature Battle Bond ability was vastly changed, and now it just gives it a stat boost rather than the cinematic and powerful transformation. I really just don't understand as to why this is. I mean, everyone adores Greninja, so why is Game Freak making these decisions? But to close out here on Greninja, it has played a massive role in the entire Pokemon franchise. Not only has it remained a powerful threat in-game and competitively, but it has also helped lead the modern era of the Pokemon series thanks to its insane popularity, catapulting it into becoming a gaming icon as well as one of the most influential Pokemon ever. Well guys, that's that. Those are my rankings of every single water starter in all of Pokemon. So, do you agree with my rankings? If not, be sure to let me know what changes you would make in the comments section below. Also, be sure to check out these other videos on screen now for more Pokemon content. Thanks guys!